All right, welcome to the Jim Acosta Show, and it's another day that ends in Y and the far right's assault on democracy in America. The New York Times reporting that Trump administration officials are responding to the activist Charlie Kirk's assassination by threatening to bring the weight of the federal government down on what they allege was a left-wing network that funds and incites violence. That's just one of several headlines coming at us today. Joining me first this hour is Juliet Jeske, who is with Decoding Fox News, that brilliant citizen journalist project. And Juliet, the reason why I wanted to have you on today is because there appear to be no consequences for the actions of these radicals on the right. In fact, there's a double standard. Case in point, Fox anchor Brian Kilmeade's horrendous comments stating that homeless people should be euthanized in this country. He had to apologize, but at this moment, he still has a job. And this just follows one of a number of just really horrendous comments that were uttered on Fox over the last several days since Charlie Kirk's killing. And as a matter of fact, we should point out that Kilmeade made these comments about homeless people even before was gunned down. Juliet, you're pretty busy these days staying on top of all this stuff.
It's been a really rough week. It's probably the worst week other than Trump's inauguration that I've ever had to watch Fox. It's very disturbing. And what happened on Wednesday morning is they were talking about the brutal murder of a Ukrainian immigrant on a light rail train in North Carolina. And in the discussion, they started talking more about, and this was on Fox and Friends, so this was Lawrence Jones, Ansley Einhart, and Brian Kilmeade. And they start talking more generally about, like, what do we do about mentally ill homeless people who are violent? And they were speaking in general terms. They were definitely not talking about this one individual who allegedly committed this crime. They said, well, we should just force them to go to mental institutions. That's what Lawrence Jones said. And then in the back and forth, Brian Kilmeade said, well, we should just give them involuntary lethal injection. We should kill them. Yeah. And that's what he said. And it was as if I was recording at the time, so I didn't see it. And I caught it later. Somebody else had posted it. And I went, oh, I'm going to have to go back and get that. Yeah. And then everybody else was posting it. I thought, I don't need to post it because it's already out there. And then I noticed that people on the right were saying, oh, he was misquoted. He's talking about this murder. And I'm like, no, he wasn't. And I watched the whole segment. And so then I made a video along with, just about everybody else who covers Fox, made a video about it. And I specifically said, well, they're talking about a collective group of people. He says them. And the pronoun is them. And then in Brian Kilmeade's it looked like hostage type, like a joking hostage, but it looked like somebody was forcing him to make this apology. He again used the plural. He said, I never meant to say that they should be put, I said that. He didn't actually say that. He said, I said what I said was callous, that they should be killed. And of course they shouldn't be killed because they're people. And,
let's unpack this because we actually have the video. Let's play the initial comment from Brian Kilmeade on Fox and Friends that started this. And I mean, for folks who have not seen this, I know a lot of folks have seen it, but for folks who haven't seen it, it's extraordinary and it's unique and just how awful it is. Let's watch this.
Put them in a mental institution, put them in a jail, and you guys figure it out. But people having to duck and dive on the trains and the buses, walking through the street, this is one case, but this is happening all across the country, and it's not a money issue. They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up. You can't keep putting these people in power.
Yeah, I mean, there's no taking it out of context, Juliet. I mean, it's stunning to hear him say it, and they just sort of keep going. Ainsley, is that her name? The other co-anchor on the show. She just kind of keeps going after. I mean, if somebody said that next to me, I think my head would pop off. I don't know how I would react. Honestly, it's just such an insane comment. And then over the weekend, he, like you said, he apologized on Sunday, but it was a forced apology. We should. The Washington Post reported that I guess spokespeople for Fox News sent out Kilmeade's apology on Sunday, which they said also serves as the network's response. So Brian Kilmeade had to apologize on behalf of himself and Fox. Let's watch his apology.
In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zaruska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion.
So, I mean, Juliet, it sounds as though, I mean, first of all, like you were saying earlier, it does look like a hostage video. I mean, he looks like he had been up all night and did not get much sleep, which I can understand. He probably was thinking, okay, maybe his career is over. But at Fox, your career is not over, even when you say that homeless people should be euthanized. I mean, it's pretty unreal. And I am shocked that he has not been fired. I mean, he should be fired. There's no question about it. I mean, Brian Kilmeade should be out of a job right now. And the fact that he can say these things, again, this is another example where you can say things on Fox that you can say on no other network, I think anywhere in the world, probably in a free democratic society.
Yeah. I mean, there's been so many examples. There was the first one was that I clipped when I was brand new. It was like 2 months. Yeah. About 2 months into my gig at Decoding Fox News, I clipped Jesse Waters saying he was, I'm going to put this in air quotes, joking that he let the air out of the tires of his, then producer, who was much younger than him when he was married. He was a married man with twin girls. And he claimed, he joked, I let the air out of her tires so she would go out on a date with me. And then the entire cast of the Five start yelling at him going, no, take that back. And he didn't. And he smugly said, yeah, I did. And I clipped that. That went viral. Like it got global attention. Nobody cared. And then there was another incident where Greg Gutfeld yelling at Jessica Tarloff, who is Jewish, when they were having a discussion and the Holocaust came up. And he said, those who, were useful survived. And he was quoting a book, but he did so very poorly. And that got so crazy that the Auschwitz Museum weighed in, the White House weighed in. And he attacked me thinking he could silence me. He claimed he was taken out of context. I'm like, no, you weren't. I put the entire, it was like 7 minutes. I linked the videos on Twitter. I said, how is that taken out of context? You said what you said. If you want to clarify it, it's up to you, not me. I can't read your mind. I have no idea what your subtext was. Yeah. He tried to harass me online. He tried to harass me on his show. I'm not going to blink. And then the Daily Beast did an article about it. They requested to talk to Fox, and that was, then it went away. Because I think somebody at Fox found out about it, and they're like, what are you doing, you idiot? Because he was bringing more attention to his horrible comment. Yeah. One of the reasons why I bring this Kilmeade episode up, and I do want to talk about Jesse Waters and what he said after Charlie Kirk was killed, is that Fox is very much a source, if not the source, of radicalism in America right now on the right. And you can just about say anything over there and get away with it as long as you're one of their popular anchors. And Kilmeade's on Fox and Friends. It's a big money maker for Fox. But in no other place could you say something like this. And the other thing we talk about, Juliet, is, this was before Charlie Kirk died. Yeah. And in the aftermath of his death, they were cranking up the craziness over at Fox yet again. And Jesse Waters, we should say, said this in response to what happened to Charlie Kirk. He basically said that MAGA is at war with the rest of the country, or the political opponents of MAGA. Let's watch that.
One of us. And Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with a rifle to his neighborhood. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot 2 Jews outside the embassy. Think about it. Scalise got shot, barely survived. It's happening. You got trans shooters. You got riots in LA. They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us.
And I enjoy playing these clips? I know you don't enjoy researching these clips, but
No.
this is what is consumed by millions of people in this country. I mean, The Five is a wildly popular show on Fox, and Jesse, of course, is not going to get punished. Nothing's going to happen to him for saying these sorts of things. But I mean, this is incitement. This is dangerous stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I captured it a little late because again I was working the whole day on my newsletter podcast on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I got that after it had aired. And I got it on YouTube TV, which is like a cable provider. Fox altered that video. What they did, the audio is the same. Oh yeah. The audio is the same. But instead of showing Jesse Waters saying that, they covered the screen with an image of Charlie Kirk and gave it was like a memorial of the year he was born and the year he died. And it was just
Wow.
yeah. And the audio was still there. Audio was still there, but they didn't show Jesse Waters' face saying it. He also said, "We will avenge Charlie's death." Like, how on earth do you say that with knowing that somebody out there could hear that and go, yeah, I'm going to avenge Charlie's death. And they also use the pronoun they again. They killed him.
Yeah,
They
a viewer
killed
just
him.
made that comment. We put it up on screen. Who's they?
Who's they? Because again, who is they? It was one person who did this. We're still confused on exactly what the motives were for this individual. Very young, typical shooter.
Yep.
Young, online too much, confused politics so far. We're not sure what happened, but it was definitely one human being. No group, no coordination, but yet it's they. We all get blamed for the actions of one person.
And Jesse Waters does not bring up what took place in Minnesota.
And of course
with the state
not.
lawmaker there and her husband who was killed and by a right-wing gunman. And we should note in Utah where this took place, this is according to The Independent, the grandmother of Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk. Of course, we think he is the person, spoke out for the first time, claiming there's no way her quiet and reserved grandson killed the conservative activist. She went on to say, my son, his dad, this is the grandmother, is a Republican for Trump. Most of my family members are Republican. I don't know any single one who is a Democrat. I'm just so confused. This is what the grandmother was saying. And Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, was saying that Tyler Robinson had a leftist ideology, but that it's still under investigation. But the shell casings, to your point, Juliet, had online gaming references engraved into so it's just a jumbled mess. And so it gets back to this question of who Jesse Waters is talking about, this they that he's talking about. And the reason why I bring this up is it dovetails perfectly with what's being reported in the New York Times today, what J.D. Vance was saying on Charlie Kirk's show earlier today, that they are gearing up inside the Trump administration for some sort of concerted effort to go after what they believe to be leftist opponents of Donald Trump and the administration and the far right.
Yeah. It's a little terrifying. And what Stephen Miller said when he was on Hannity of basically, I'm paraphrasing him.
Yeah.
But he did say dismantle left-wing organizations, RICO charge. Well, good luck with that. Those are really difficult to prosecute. Evil, he used the term evil, terrorism, hate. And then he basically said that he didn't quite say this, but he basically said, we will hunt you down. We will find you. We will take your money. We will freeze your money. We will destroy your organizations. And I'm like, what organizations? Like most people aren't in an organization. Like, what are you talking about? They frequently claim.
And Stephen Miller was saying this on Fox. We should point.
On Fox.
He was saying this on Hannity on Friday night. I saw this and I just couldn't believe my ears. I mean, it's Stephen Miller, but even Stephen Miller can out Stephen Miller.
Yeah,
it was one of those moments.
It was really outrageous because there's no sense of maybe we should pull back a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't, because again, it's like, Tucker Carlson was really bad about doing this when he was still on the network. And we were all breathed a sigh of relief when he got fired because we the worst one had this huge platform and now he's gone. And, they've filled that void because they just don't care. And it was like the type of thing where, I'm writing down some of the words. I wrote down some of the words of how they described Kirk. And of course, this is to be expected. This is, I mean, it's a tragedy what happened, even though you can disagree with everything that man promoted. Nobody should get shot for their beliefs in this country. But they were literally calling him, the next president. They said that multiple times. And I'm like, that seems a bit extreme because,
Right.
I get it, but that's not incitement. But Stephen Miller's comments were absolutely reckless, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care. They also frequently say every time they show a protest on the left, all those people are paid, and we have proof that they're paid. They don't produce the proof. It's just
That's right.
all those people are paid, and that's got to be Soros money, and we're going to go after Soros. They've said that a few times.
Yeah, Trump has said that himself. I mean, Trump was on Fox and Friends on Friday saying this kind of stuff on Friday. And I noticed I think it was Friday evening. I believe I was trending on X because there was somebody who said that I had accused the far right of trying to weaponize, or the right of weaponizing what took place with Charlie Kirk. And I did say that. I mean, that's what I said. I said it because it's true.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. And Donald Trump is doing it. Jesse Waters is doing it. Stephen Miller is doing it. I mean, and a lot of this, you and I were talking about this before we got going, a lot of this gets started. Sometimes I wonder, is it the Trump White House doing the talking points first, or is it Fox News doing the talking points first? And then the Trump people pick up on it. It's this, and we talked about this a million times. It's in a historically unprecedented symbiotic relationship.
Well, they were
It's hard to
talking about
separate who's the organ grinder and who's the monkey here. I mean,
on the Friday, they were even saying like, well, they even brought that up. They go, well, so many people who used to work at Fox work in the White House now. And so, they openly are loving that sort of like chain between here's our propaganda machine, here's the White House, and we're in constant contact. They don't even, and I do think there's also that sort of super far right, the Reddit, the Discord, some of these, and there are normal people on Discord and Reddit. I don't mean to assume, because I get quoted on Reddit all the time. Yeah. So but you can find extremists on some of these platforms, and there's this sort of through line that goes from the extreme right onto Fox into the White House. Sometimes it's the White House onto Fox into the extreme. It's all one big ecosystem of voices ramping each other up. And once it gets on Fox, and I've tried to express this to people who some folks don't understand why I even do what I do, because they go, well, who watches Fox anyway? And I'm like,
yeah. And Juliet, explain just for the folks who missed you the last time, or seeing this for the first time, because this is going out on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, everything else. So who knows, they may or may not be familiar with your work, although your work is everybody loves it. You basically watch hours and hours of Fox, their most popular shows, and you find these trend lines, and it's just sort of staring you in the face. It's not like you have to go there with a magnifying glass and a fine-tooth comb, right?
No, it's overwhelming. And like I said, last week was probably one of the worst weeks I've ever sat through, because it was not great to see them, because that horrible murder on the train in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, was a major story. It was like half their airtime. And, normally they act like, why isn't the rest of the media reporting on this? I'm like, because it's not really, it shouldn't get, I mean, I get that you're putting it's
a big story, but not 50% of the coverage.
Yeah, it's not 50% of your coverage. There's wars going on. There's other things going on.
Fox chooses cultural pressure point, hot button stories that they think will juice their audience.
Exactly. Yeah. So they had spent a lot of time on that story, and then immediately just went right into Kirk. And I just was like, this is the worst, because it's not pleasant to sit through that. And I do feel terrible for Kirk's family. I do feel terrible for the family of this poor Ukrainian, my cat almost got on the computer, but this poor Ukrainian, what are you going to do? They're live animals. But that's Odin. I feel sorry for the Ukrainian woman's family.
Absolutely.
It's always, and I also feel sorry for the alleged killer of that Ukrainian woman, because he was suffering from major severe mental illness, and they are crushed by this because they were trying to get him help. So there's just so many layers of sorrow and sadness and tragedy. And, Fox is more than happy to just lean in as much
Yeah,
as
they're not
possible.
treating it with any kind of care, like, let's get to the heart of this or solve these issues. It's how do we neatly package these cultural hot button issues that push people's buttons, and how do we package them in a way that maximizes the incitement of our audience
Yeah.
and drives them to MAGA and the conservative viewpoint. The other thing that needs to be pointed out is that there's a Washington Post columnist today. I hope to have her on tomorrow, Karen Attia. She was fired over at the Washington Post. She says for basically putting her viewpoints out on what happened with Charlie Kirk and what he had said about Black women.
Yeah.
And I guess the people over at the Washington Post didn't like that. She was also raising a good point that, there was also this school shooting in Colorado that got very little attention. Apparently there was a radical white supremacist who was behind that. And, she is fired over at the Washington Post, the Jeff Bezos Washington Post, for basically just putting the facts out there. And she's an opinion columnist. So it's not, she was doing her job as an opinion columnist, putting this stuff out there. And Brian Kilmeade can say you can kill homeless people. We should kill homeless people. He doesn't get fired. That's the other thing that's going on in our country right now, is that you see people getting canned at mainstream news organizations for stuff that is nowhere near what Kilmeade and Jesse Waters do.
Yeah, I saw some of what she posted, and she was just accurately quoting Charlie Kirk. And I thought, I'm sorry, we can't accurately. She didn't even put anything on top of it. She just said, she showed a quote where he said, Black women did not have the brain capacity or mental capacity, something like that. And I've seen him say that. I've seen.
Yes, he said that. It's one of the many horrible things that he said. This is what he did. He was one of those provocateurs on the far right.
And I would say too that Fox specifically, Tucker Carlson was really bad about this when he was still on the network, but the network in general specifically goes after Black women more than just the Black community. I don't know why. I guess the double
Michelle
whammy.
Obama, she did that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of their favorite targets for years over at Fox.
Any accomplished Black woman on Fox gets attacked mercilessly.
Yes.
To the point that it's like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, and it's always, oh, she must have gotten some sort of edge because she was a Black woman. And I'm like, do you have any idea? Like, they don't even, they act as if racism doesn't exist and that there's no barriers to anything. And that we just, if you just work hard enough, you'll get there. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, they also push this narrative that it's white people who are primarily discriminated against.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which
so
is
absurd.
It's an absurd thing to say. Do you ever get the sense, you mentioned Tucker Carlson's firing earlier, that is one of the rare moments where there was, and it was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back after a mountain of straws, were piled up on top of the camel's back. But there aren't that many instances where Fox cleans house.
Yeah.
They really cling to, Hannity's been there for years. Laura Ingraham got moved from 10 to 7, and Gutfeld got, for all of his ridiculous stuff, he got rewarded with a 10 o'clock slot. So they don't really push people out, like in Brian Kilmeade's case, unless it's absolutely necessary for them.
Well, and Kilmeade is sort of their workhorse. He does Fox and Friends, and he does a 3-hour radio show, and then he has a show on the weekends. And he's the one, and they openly joke about it. They openly joke about it whenever anybody's sick or out of town at last minute. Kilmeade's the one hosting.
Yeah.
And he's like, I never stop working. I always do his voice. But anyway, he does that dippy kind of like, he will do whatever they tell him to do. And that's why, and he's been there for, I think, 26 years, because he was part of the original cast of Fox and Friends. And I do think Steve Doocy kept him in check a little bit, and now Steve Doocy's like semi-retired. Yeah,
you don't see Steve Doocy as much, but he would from time to time. As a matter of fact, if Steve Doocy had been on the show that morning, he might have
said something.
Maybe he would have said something.
Yeah, I do think he would have, because in the past couple of years, Doocy started to push back a little bit when they would say something completely insane. And I don't really know why. I don't know his motivation. Can't read his mind. But there were multiple instances of Steve Doocy correcting his coworkers. And
yes, there have been instances of that. Yes, Steve
yeah,
Ducey's
and
sort of like the disapproving father who's there
yeah, yeah,
sometimes. And
yeah,
occasionally when he's paying attention, chimes in and says, oh, maybe
yeah,
we shouldn't say that.
yeah.
But to me, what is so important about what you do, and for folks out there who are wondering how you can help Juliet continue to do this, she runs a Substack. You can help her do this work. It's so vitally important because there aren't a lot of people who do what you do. I mean, I sort of think of it when I worked at the White House. We had Mark Knoller, the legendary CBS News radio correspondent. God rest his soul. He passed away recently. Lovely man. And he used to record the daily activities of the president better than the White House did. And so it got to the point where the White House would rely on Mark Knoller to know where did the president go here? Did the president go there? How many minutes was he in the Oval and so on? And I think you sort of do that with Fox. And I don't really know of anybody else who does this with Fox.
I'm kind of I'm a nerd. So I was my focus in grad school was data journalism. And then I weirdly ended up in business, which is a total other story. But so business concentration with data journalism. And I approach it a little bit more analytically because that's the way I think. So I love looking at like percentages and how many times you use a word in a given week. And that's something that some other people who cover Fox do. But it's something kind of unique to my project. And the other thing that I do that I don't think anybody does is I use a control. So I compare Fox every single week to the PBS NewsHour. And I picked PBS because it's straight down the middle.
They're the best. Yeah.
Because they're not corporate. So and because of the way it's unfortunate what's going on with public broadcasting right now and funding, but because they used to get some public funding, they're very careful about going straight down the middle and not showing any bias.
Yeah.
And being very, very careful about that. And so that's why I picked them. So every week I compare like high quality, nonpartisan news with garbage. And I do that because it helps me and my brain bounce off. Like it helps me give perspective of how terrible Fox is rather than just being immersed in Fox. I get to come out of it and go, oh, there's other things going on in the world.
No, and it's great work. And we appreciate what you do. I will, and I've said this before on my show, when I go overseas, I was in Norway earlier this year. When you go to various countries over in Europe and so on, they don't have anything that's even close to the equivalent of Fox in America. And if you're wondering why things are so deeply polarized and out of control in this country, I will argue that one of the top things that is wrong with this country is Fox.
I'd agree. 100%.
And Kilmeade is maybe not Exhibit A, but pretty damn close to Exhibit A. Jesse Waters is probably Exhibit A.
Yeah.
And that Kilmeade thing, it's just unbelievable that he still has a job. Juliet, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And say hi to the kitty cats. Was it?
Oh yeah,
What did you say?
It's Odin and Thor, and just like you have a dog on your mug.
Yes.
It's Odin. It's not actually Odin, but yeah, close enough to
Odin. That's a pretty almost like the same kind of mug too, which I like.
I know, total dork.
We are
Thanks
dorks.
for having me.
Good to see you, Jill. I'm the dork. You're not. Julia, great to see you.
Thanks for
Great
having
job.
me.
Thanks a lot. Great job. I want to go to Charlie Sykes, who is standing by as well. Charlie, great to see you as always.
Thank you.
I was just talking with Juliet Jeske about the work that she does decoding Fox News, as she calls it. And I do want to talk about that in a little bit. But I was telling folks at the top of the show, at the top of the hour, that to me, the lead story, and there's a lot of different ways we could go, is the New York Times reporting that Trump administration officials are responding to Kirk's assassination by threatening to bring the weight of the federal government down on what they allege was a left-wing network that funds and incites violence. Stephen Miller has been talking about this for several days. I know you wrote a Substack about this. You highlighted what Laura Loomer, who is one of Trump's acolytes, one of his favorites, she was saying stuff on, I guess it was on X, that was just totally out of control. You know, you wrote, here's Trump's BFF, Laura Loomer, declaring that she wants Trump to be the dictator the left thinks he is. And I want the right to be as devoted to locking up and silencing our violent political enemies as they pretend we are. This is dangerous stuff. And it feels like, Charlie, it's going beyond just rhetoric now. It now feels like maybe it's a little more real and menacing.
Oh, it's very real. It's very menacing. It's intended to be. And what they are trying to do is to weaponize the anger and the grief of the murder of Charlie Kirk. And what's striking to me is how unsubtle they're being, how direct they're being. Whether you're talking about Laura Loomer or Stephen Miller, who again is very explicit about using the power of the government to strip, progressive organizations of their money and of their resources, throw people in jail, and it needs to be taken seriously because Donald Trump is listening to these folks, and and again, making no secret about it, using words like RICO, using the law to go after George Soros, saying we should put him in jail because he's a bad guy. This is the president of the United States, so he can do this.
Yeah, and to me, it's kind of leaving the universe of people just popping off on Fox.
Right.
I mean, it's Stephen Miller going on Hannity. It was on Friday when he was saying a lot of this stuff, and I thought about engaging and retweeting it and saying, "Look, it's," and I feel like I should highlight it. I mean, this is a senior White House official. This is basically Trump's brain. For lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, sort of in the way that Karl Rove was Bush's brain, but totally different universe. But Stephen Miller really kind of drives the train over there ideologically and sort of in the nutty way that he does, in the extremist way that he does. And for him to be saying that, he was kind of saying it again. J.D. Vance was guest hosting Charlie Kirk's show earlier today, and Miller was saying this stuff.
Well, Miller is saying this stuff, and Trump is saying this stuff, and I think the key thing is, and again, you're absolutely right. I mean, Stephen Miller, you need to take him seriously because he is the chief ideologue and the architect of many of Trump's draconian policies. I mean, we've seen them go from concept to reality over and over again. The important thing to recognize, though, is the fact that they've wanted to do this for a very, very long time. It was last month, before the murder of Charlie Kirk, that President Trump was bleeding out that he wanted to go after George Soros. It was Stephen Miller who, throughout the year, has been labeling political opponents as terrorists, as people who are basically a criminal organization. I mean, do you remember when he gave that one interview on Fox News, of course, Fox News, where he said the Democratic Party is not a political party. It's a criminal enterprise. It's a terrorist organization. Well, Jim, if the Democratic Party is not a real political party, if it really is a terrorist organization, how do you deal with it? Do you treat them as a rival in a democratic system, or do you use the full power of the federal government, including lethal force, against those enemies? And I think that you're seeing this rhetorical shift. But again, the Charlie Kirk moment is, and I'm sorry to use this because it's an overused term, but it's an inflection point where it's gone from just sort of rhetoric to they're serious. They're going to be doing things. We've seen Trump's willingness to use the Department of Justice, to use the FBI as his own personal instrument and weapon of retaliation and revenge. And I think we can see, buckle up. This is coming.
There's no question about it. And to me, Charlie, I don't know about what you think, but when it became a little murky on Friday as to what the motivations were of the suspect, it was sort of a hodgepodge all over the place. We're not really sure. I know Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, was saying he came from a leftist ideology on Meet the Press, but this young man's own grandmother apparently was telling the Daily Mail, we don't have any Democrats in the family. We don't know any Democrats. My son, the young man's father, the suspect's father, is a Trump Republican. I mean, and then there's just all the weird, nutty engravings on the shell casings referring to online gaming and so on. And I don't know. I feel like I'm a reasonable, rational person. I'm wondering what you think. It's not really clear where this kid was coming from, and yet Trump and the right and Stephen Miller and all these folks, they're gonna drive that square peg into the round hole no matter what. And they want this to be a trans killer or whatever, a leftist killer, what have you, because it fits their narrative and their agenda.
Yeah, I mean, two things. Number one, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And I think that the answer in the end is going to be that this is a very confusing and very muddled picture. I was reading somebody earlier today who said that no journalist who's over the age of 50 is going to be able to understand that weird world of gaming and all the memes and the irony on irony and the coded words and all of this stuff. So it's going to be a very confusing picture, except on the right and on Fox News and through the administration, because they have their narrative and they're going to stick with that narrative and they're going to drive that narrative. There are just too many incentives. There's too much ideological investment in all of this. And it again is their pretext to do what they have been wanting to do for some time. And you see this whether it's Trump or J.D. Vance or Stephen Miller or Laura Loomer. They are at full cry. And, look, I guess, you and I are both old enough to remember when the president of the United States would be the comforter in chief.
Yes.
Of course, Donald Trump was never going to be the comforter in chief. But right now, the inciter and inflamer in chief is sitting in the Oval Office, and he has the largest possible megaphone. And he's going to be driving this narrative of division and this story that only the left engages in political violence. So we're seeing this selective Orwellian history that just pretends that what happened in Minnesota didn't happen.
It's like the rewriting of January 6th.
Which he successfully has done for his base.
That's right. Yes. And he's tried to rewrite the history of January 6th for his base. You're absolutely, that's such a great observation, Charlie. The thing though, that worries me is, first of all, just to hit the pause button on what I was about to say, we should point out on Friday, and I'm sure you saw this video, when Donald Trump was asked, how are you holding up, sir, in relation to Charlie Kirk? And he started talking about the ball. He said, well, I'm fine. And then he started talking about the ballroom that's under construction over the White House. So to me, that was one of those telling moments that perhaps he and others had felt like, well, this wasn't exactly what we thought it was going to be. And I guess now we need to start moving on to other things. And then something happened over the weekend where they're back at it. They're determined on this one.
They are determined on it. And I think people need to take that seriously. Look, Donald Trump, his prefrontal cortex may be unripe bananas, but there are people around him who have a very, very, a focused agenda. And they are going to do whatever possible to maximize the reaction to all of this. And I do think that it's interesting. Look, I want to make it very clear that I have met Charlie Kirk. I won't say that we knew one another at all, but I served on panels with him.
Yeah.
And I was horrified by his murder. He's a human being. He's a father.
Absolutely.
He's a husband. This stuff should never happen. On the other hand, what is interesting is the way in which this has pivoted so quickly in our country from grief. Do you remember, we've gone so far since 9/11 when a tragedy like this would unite people.
Yes.
We pivoted so quickly to this agenda of anger and retaliation and vengeance. And that's a very, very potent force. And I think historians, particularly historians of authoritarianism, have seen where this leads, and it generally does not lead to a good place.
It doesn't lead to a good place. And I'm right there with you. And we were saying this on my show. I had Harry Dunn on, Olivia Troy, Senator Doug Jones in the immediate aftermath of this. And we were all saying, this is a moment for the country to try to come together and try to turn down the temperature and don't have a rush to judgment. Don't have a rush to draw any conclusions before the facts come in. But Charlie, I think the world that we live in now is that only one half of the equation is willing to do that. And in the MAGA universe, they're just hell-bent on this. And Charlie Kirk's death, however tragic as it was, and it certainly was extremely tragic, it's just awful. And this sounds, I hate even saying it in this fashion, but it seems to me they view this as something that they want to use to try to stir up more division and discord in this country. And
you're seeing them do that.
And we're seeing them do that.
No, and there's the tremendous asymmetry where, as it played out,
Democratic governors and so on, who came out, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, they're all coming. This is a moment we should turn down the temperature. Even Spencer Cox, I will say, was saying all the right things. But on the far right, this is not the case.
No, it's not the case. And the consequences are, again, asymmetrical. So that somebody on the left will say something perhaps, in poor taste or in bad timing. And yet look at the rhetoric that you're getting, the people who are stoking civil war, the people who are talking about shutting down their political opposition. So where are the voices saying, hey, the worst thing we can do is to take this act of political violence and use this now as an excuse to shut down political speech. And I think that's one of the key things, is that there is now an attempt to stigmatize the kind of commentary that you and I engage in, talking about the threats to democracy, talking about the possibility of incipient fascism. And as I wrote on my Substack today, this is exactly the moment not to go silent, because, not to go silent because the threat is right now right in front of us, and it's worse than ever. And I think that what you have this effort to really shut down dissent, to use it to quash dissent, to say that anybody that says that Donald Trump or the right is a threat to democracy, that this incites violence. Well, what does that mean? I mean, it means that a lot of the commentary that we engage in is now being stigmatized as they redefine opposition as some sort of a dangerous, seditious, perhaps act of domestic terrorism. And where that leads, I think historically we know how dangerous it can be.
Yeah, we were just showing your Substack a few moments ago. Call fascism fascism. Call hate hate. Don't stop doing that, because people on the far right are beating everybody down and saying, you can't call them like you see them. And Karen Attiah, who's the columnist over at the Washington Post, she was fired by the Washington Post, she says, for basically saying that what Charlie Kirk said was wrong about Black women. And it was wrong what he said about Black women. He shouldn't have said things like that. But that was the kind of politics he was engaged in. But the asymmetry here, Charlie, is pretty startling when you have somebody like Jesse Waters, last week saying we're at war. They're at war with us. He keeps referring to this they. That's dangerous stuff.
It is dangerous stuff, and it is going to become more dangerous. Look, I mean, there's two things we need to make distinctions. The people who actually celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk, that is just completely unacceptable.
Horrendous.
It completely. But what's happening is you notice that it's starting to morph, that if you now criticize Charlie Kirk or things that he said or did, then that is also considered part of the right-wing cancel culture, that they're coming after you. And the reality is that you can balance these things in your head, that I disagree fundamentally. Much of what he said, I think, was dangerous and damaging, but that is in no way suggesting that that is why he was assassinated or a justification for his assassination. But again, one of the ironies, at the same time, they're saying that Charlie Kirk was a champion for free speech, but if you criticize him, we're going to get you fired. So there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance there, isn't there?
Yeah, just a little bit of a disconnect, no question about it. And we thought that this month of September was going to be all about Jeffrey Epstein and maybe a government shutdown. But here we are, smack dab in the middle of I think a very consequential discussion about this country and how we emerge from this. What took place last week with the killing of Charlie Kirk. When I read what you're saying, Charlie, and you have you've been in this business for a long time. You were conservative broadcaster for many years, and then said, you know what, I'm not on this Trump train. That's for darn sure. I get the sense from you, and I get the sense from talking to a lot of people. I was talking to somebody earlier today about this prominent voice. I shouldn't name check him because I don't have his permission to do it. But people who are just really worried about the future of this country right now, really worried. How do we unravel this? How do we get out of this? With Donald Trump in the White House, it just seems to me there's just no how people can say turn down the temperature. Trump's cranking it all the way up to 85. You know what I mean? How do you turn? You can't turn it down.
95.
No,
you can't. How can you not be worried about the state of the country right now? How can you not think that this inflection point is more likely the beginning of something than the end of something? How can you not have the sense that, this country, this great experiment, is right now in the midst of a massive nervous breakdown every single day, with the pace of things that are going on, and with the determination of the people who are in power, and in absolute power, really, at this point, and are prepared to use that power as a cudgel against their enemies. So yes, I actually liked what Spencer Cox said, and because I've made the similar distinction between optimism and hope. I'm not optimistic. Optimism is the belief things are just going to get better. Hope is the belief that if you work very, very hard, you can turn things around. So I'm not optimistic, but it's hard to kind of cling to that hope that we're not on some sort of a, toboggan ride to the bottom. And because Donald Trump clearly is not, when we say that he's not the comforter in chief, he's not the uniter in chief, he makes no pretense of being the president of all Americans.
That's right.
Which also means that we have a president who is not putting this national purpose, this national interest as his priority, that his personal vendettas, his personal, ids that he scratches has eclipsed all of that. And that's the world we're living in. So America right now is at a very, very dangerous place. And unfortunately, I'd be naive if I said that a year from now, we will be in a less dangerous place. So what are the implications for the future of, the rule of law, for the future of democracy? What is the status of the Constitution? Will the Supreme Court actually stand up and be a guardrail? Will Congress actually decide that it doesn't want to be potted plants? Or are we on this inexorable slide that so many other democracies and republics have been on, going into the next two elections? So, I mean, it is a scary time.
It's going to take engagement, I think, on everybody's part. Anybody who cares about democracy, there is no losing to the couch in the next two cycles. If you're on the couch, then you basically raised the white flag, and I think that's just unacceptable at this point. But it seems to me that when we look at the big picture here, and I was talking about this with Juliet Jeske, who does Decoding Fox News, it's hard to take the Fox News component out of this. I mean, this is a major state media tool, state media-like tool that Donald Trump has at his disposal now. I mean, he was on Fox and Friends on Friday stoking this stuff. Stephen Miller was on Fox. He's on Hannity's Friday night. Jesse Waters was using that war rhetoric. And before even any of this got started, Brian Kilmeade was saying you can euthanize homeless people. And he just had to give an apology over the weekend without even getting fired, which is just extraordinary to me. And I'm just wondering, Charlie, as somebody who came out of broadcasting, I know I came out of broadcasting, and I can say with authority that if this had happened anywhere else, that person would have been shit canned in a heartbeat. Jesse Waters, shit canned a long time ago.
No, generally going on the air and saying that homeless people should be involuntarily euthanized, just kill them, would seem to be, that's a career-ending kind of comment, especially in the environment where we're in right now. So what does it take to get fired from Fox? But also, I do have to just, think what was going through his mind. What made him think, a guy who's a professional broadcaster, knows he's on television? Look, you and I both know that being on live television is a little bit, like being on a tightrope. It's always dangerous, especially when you have breaking news. But he's sitting there on the couch, and they have plenty of time. They've been talking about this story, about what happened in Charlotte over and over and over again. And so when you think about that mentality, it is extraordinary that he would just get off by saying, yes, I apologize for making a callous comment. No, Fox News is an important component here, and I don't want to downplay it in any way, but I also think that we need to understand how vast this whole right-wing media ecosystem has become. Charlie Kirk was part of it.
He was
he was a big part of it, and it is a universe that continues to grow and metastasize. There are the offshoots, there are the groypers, there are the people that used to be on 4chan message boards. And millions of people are getting their information and getting their dopamine hits from this network. Fox News may be the most visible, but it's out there. And unfortunately, and this is, and again, Charlie Kirk, you're talking about Charlie Kirk, he understood, I think, this ecosystem and was in many ways a product of that ecosystem. But that ecosystem has its own incentives, its own reward structure. And it is driving us right now to this moment that you and I have been talking about, this increasing anger and the potential of more political violence, because that's what it feeds on. It feeds on that sense of grievance and anger and conspiracy and us versus them. And it's interesting because I was at a conference just a little while ago, and they were talking about, the future of the right. And I was in the audience and I wanted to ask a question. And the question that I wanted to ask, I didn't have a chance to ask it, but was, tell me how the rivalry on the right, the emerging rivalry between Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, who's an actual neo-Nazi,
Right.
how that's going to play out, because on the right, because of this new ecosystem, there's this constant incentive to keep moving more and more extreme.
Exactly.
And the fact that right now, one of the rising figures on the right who's going to be competing for, to be the next Charlie Kirk is a guy so far out there that I still find it almost, I find it mind blowing to think that there would be any young people that would follow someone like a Nick Fuentes, a Holocaust denier, outright, anti-Semitic bigot like Nick Fuentes. But this is the world we live in, where they are fed by this and they feed it, and it becomes this self-perpetuating instrument of extremism.
Yeah, it's such a good point, because I mean, if you look at the video of what happened to Charlie Kirk, there was a huge crowd for him, and he had these huge crowds going on wherever he went, and it goes to the kind of power and influence that he had inside the MAGA movement, in particular with young people, Gen Zers, and I don't see any kind of counterbalance to that on the left that's even remotely close to that kind of power and influence that he had over there on the right. And you're absolutely right. It does feel as though the Nick Fuenteses of the world are pulling MAGA even further to the right. And this has been going on for some time. I mean, Donald Trump, had lunch, or he dined with him at Mar-a-Lago, at lunch or dinner?
He did. Dinner. Yeah.
He met with him at Mar-a-Lago, the guy who is now the president of the United States. And it just goes to show you, they feel that there is some currency to playing footsie with outright just bigots and anti-Semites and neo-Nazis and Proud Boys and extremists and so on. And it
moves the window. It moves the window of what is
Yes.
acceptable. And on the right, the one thing is, you don't want to be outflanked by somebody who's cooler, younger, and
That's
more
right.
extreme than you are. And you've seen this on talk radio, you see it on Fox News, you see it on all of this. And this is part of the story. So if people think, boy, this is pretty bad, I mean, I actually think that it's one of those moments people should say, again, setting aside the unacceptability of political violence, why are so many of the things that Charlie Kirk said, why are they considered to be acceptable? Why would Ezra Klein write that he did politics the right way when he said
exactly the right way? I saw that.
So
why would he say that?
Exactly. So I think that we need to understand that there is this constant I've described it as a vortex moving people, and there are people in the Trump administration who do listen to what people like Nick Fuentes are saying right now. And so,
yes,
again, this is one until somebody stands up with credibility and says, hey, enough, let's stop this. But that has not happened in the last decade, and I'm not optimistic it's going to happen now.
Yeah, and you brought up Ezra Klein, and I wish I had brought him up sooner so we could have this in a more fulsome way in terms of a discussion. But when he said that that Charlie Kirk practiced politics exactly the right way, I think is the way he phrased it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, because to me, Charlie Kirk, he was a provocateur, and he said things that were bigoted and were really ugly. I mean, he talked about Black women in a way that, I mean, it's just absolutely shameful. And I don't like to talk about the recently departed in that fashion. I don't, that's just not, I'm old fashioned. I don't love to do that, but it's true. These are the things that he said. And so I don't understand, but to me, Ezra Klein's take on it represents sort of I don't know what it is on the center left and the pro-democracy side of things, that I think, to the point you were talking about, the vortex and the window moving more and more to the right, there's almost an acceptance in corporate media, among some people in the center, thought leaders and so on, who accept this stuff and they've had their outrage sensors numbed.
Yeah, maybe I should cut him some more slack, because I think I understand why he was saying it. Again, he's trying to lower the temperature, make it very, very clear, make the distinction between politics as debate as opposed to politics as violence. I mean, Charlie Kirk was not organizing the Proud Boys, although he did play a significant role on January 6th. But and I do think this is one of the things that that we need to talk about is that Charlie Kirk would go to college campuses and said, "Prove me wrong." He would engage in debate, and I think that's what Ezra Klein. Now, but having said that, what he's also introduced into the body politic is something that we're having a very hard time dealing with. How do you deal with, things that, were clearly meant to demonize others? The kind of rhetoric, and again, I as somebody who has been part of the conservative movement, remembering not that long ago when there was a considerable effort to sort of police conservatism to keep the extremists, the mouth breathers, the bigots out. I mean, this is part of that story of William F. Buckley Jr. in the 1960s saying conservatism has no future if we don't get rid of the anti-Semites, don't we get rid of the John Birchers and the Ku Klux Klanners. And he succeeded, at least in part, for a time. Unfortunately, feels like all of that has come back and is now considered acceptable.
Yeah, no, the barbarians are through the gate. There's no question about it.
The fact that Nick Fuentes is even in the conversation is an indication of that.
It's extraordinary. Charlie, great to see you. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. We'll keep having this conversation and continue it. And it's so important. But Charlie, always great to talk to you. Giving us a lot to think about. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jim.
And it's hard to top a lot of what Charlie was saying there. I think he's just right on the money in terms of how the goalposts have been moved. I guess, is it going to be acceptable for some people in corporate media and in the center and, people who say they care about democracy to be okay with the Trump White House signaling that they're going to now go after people they deem to be on the left, organizations they deem to be on the left, and accuse them of having some kind of association with what took place with Charlie Kirk? I mean, I find that to be absolutely outrageous. And we can't let our sense of normalcy get tossed out the window, get tossed aside here. It is not normal. It is not normal for the president of the United States or people who are around him to say that they're going to go after what they deem to be leftist organizations in this country. That is stifling free speech. That is stifling free expression. The Constitution has to mean something. And I think it is incumbent upon the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court this is a moment for the Supreme Court. Come on. Is it just going to be carte blanche for Donald Trump? Blank check, do whatever he wants from here to kingdom come? It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And it has no place in our politics. But apparently, this is where we are right now. And I just want to say one last thing. I mean, folks might have been wondering, why'd you start the show talking about Fox? Why'd you start the show talking about Brian Kilmeade? And I'm going to say this is why. Brian Kilmeade should be fired. Brian Kilmeade has no business being on television anymore after what he said, that homeless people should be euthanized, that they should be injected involuntarily, lethally. That is absolutely beyond the pale. That's going so far that there's no turning back. But it ties into the discussion that we're having, because for some reason in our country, if you're on the right and you work at Fox or you're in one of these MAGA friendly organizations, you can say just about anything now. You can say that it's okay to euthanize human beings and you still get to keep your job. Can somebody explain to me how that is normal in America? What are we doing here? What are we doing here when a host of a morning show, I mean, my God, were the kids getting ready for school? Were they putting their jackets on and their booties? When Brian Kilmeade is on Fox and Friends talking about euthanizing homeless people? Was grandma pouring the cornflakes in her bowl and pouring herself a cup of joe when Brian Kilmeade is talking about lethally injecting homeless people? And all Fox can do is to prop up Brian Kilmeade in front of a camera on Sunday and have him apologize on behalf of the network? And the network has nothing else to say about it? Come on, Fox. Come on. How is this normal? How is this allowed? How is this acceptable? And you have the corporate media, the non-Fox corporate media, tossing people overboard left and right for a fraction of nothing compared to what Brian Kilmeade said. If Brian Kilmeade said that on any other news network, he would be gone. He would be gone. He would have been gone that morning. At the end of Fox and Friends, at the end of that morning show on any other network, he would have been tossed out the door. They would have been waiting for him off the set with the shit in his office, in boxes, and they would have said, get the fuck out of here. But over at Fox News, you can say it. You can say you can euthanize homeless people and then still collect your multi-million-dollar paycheck. Can somebody tell me what the hell is going on in this country when that is allowed? It's totally insane. And it's totally insane that Jesse Waters over on The Five is saying that we're at war in this country. We're not at war. But somehow you can say these things over at Fox and get away with it. And it's totally nuts. It's totally not who we should be as a country, but apparently you can do it. You can do it. As Donald Trump would say, as when you're a celebrity, they let you get away with it. And it doesn't make it right. And I will say, for all of the talk inside the White House, Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, all these types saying they're going to go after people on the left, watch what you say, be careful what you say. The rest of us have to watch what we say, but on Fox, you can talk about euthanizing homeless people and still keep your multi-million-dollar paycheck. How do you like them apples, America? How do you like them apples? I want to thank Juliet, Jeske, who does an amazing job over at Decoding Fox, and my friend Charlie Sykes, as always, for joining the program. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. We had a fantastic show last Friday with Joe Walsh and Tara Setmeyer. Did extremely well on YouTube. So for the folks who are watching this on YouTube, really appreciate the support. Keep supporting us by clicking that subscribe button, clicking that like button. If you're our friends on Substack, so thankful for what you do, and really appreciate all the comments. The Substack viewers who are commenting, we try to put those comments up on screen. They're just terrific comments, and it just shows you how engaged this audience is. But really appreciate everybody tuning in and day out. And my thanks again to the guests today for another fantastic show. In the meantime, still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening. Take care. Good night.